What's going on, everyone? It looks like the SPY turned out pretty similar to what happened in September 2020, and went over it in detail a few days ago, the similarities, and this downward move was expected. All right, so in this video, we're going to go over the indices market. We're going to go over the crypto market, the bonds, the dollar. Thank you so much for following, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, if you don't have a trade going on in the SPY, moving forward, what can you do and what can you expect? All right. Number one, SPY is now trading outside of the lower level of the B band. All right. So what usually tends to happen is when we are trading outside of the lower level, that is a good signal that we are going to bounce. Okay. But what first needs to end up happening is we need to cross back above 442.67, 442.66, right? And then we need to cross above 444.70. So those are going to be two important levels of resistance that the SPY needs to reclaim. Until that happens, we are not going to be bullish in terms of our sentiment, okay? What I do think is going to end up happening, first of all, I share all of my trades live on Twitter, literally live as I post them, and I also do another video going in depth on why I take every single trade that I do at the buy and the sell signal at the time of me doing it, right? So we were targeting these SPY puts and we were targeting shorts on the entire market essentially for quite some time now. I was showing that the SPY was having tons of trouble at the 20 exponential moving average as well. And now my downside target for the SPY is going to be essentially around 439, 439.50. Okay? What that would mean is we would gap down and fall even lower outside of the lower level of the B band, okay? And usually, you can blindly buy calls at any point trading outside of the lower level, especially in a very, very, very bullish market structure. So here, back in May, we were trading outside of the lower level. If you had bought calls for months out, it would have worked. Similar, May 19th again, calls would have worked. Here in June, calls would have worked. Here, calls would have worked. So the IWM, the NASDAQ, whenever you're trading outside of the lower level of the B band, they usually always work in terms of calls for 2 to 3 months out. And it looks like we're heading into that territory, but because we closed below two key levels of support, that is not bullish at all, and it's not a good time to buy yet. We need to see some sort of a support level being formed. We need to see the support level being tested, etc. We need to see some sort of accumulation before we blindly buy into calls, okay? Us closing below, what did I say? Right, if we close below 443.22 and 442.66, that is not good, right? And that's exactly what happened, and that's why we were short, right? So, moving forward, the MACD is moving up while the SPY's price is moving down. So that is clearly not bullish. All right. So if you've been watching my videos for, recently now, you will know that if the MACD is moving upward, the price of the stock should also be moving upward. But the fact that the price of the stock is moving downward while the MACD is getting out of oversold, that is not a good sign, and that is very, very worrisome. So that's why I got into those shorts. And the RSI is clearly moving sharply down, while the MACD is not. So that is not. That's very, very. That's frightening, actually. So if 439 doesn't hold, then we will fall back down to this blue trend line here to 437.50. All right. So those are two important levels to watch to the downside on the SPY. So next, let's take a look at the IWM. So on that same day that I was posting this, I also said that the IWM looked the best for the upside. All right. Clearly, because we were trading above this level, this trend line here, it was holding as support perfectly multiple times. And it was a very, very good opportunity to go long on the IWM. But instead, I went short on the SPY. The IWM, it's, moving a bit more normally. So the MACD is moving upward, and the price of the IWM is moving upward, right? So it's not as terrible looking as the SPY. So my upward target would be the 38.2% fib level of this move, and it looks like we did touch almost that level already. But now the main level of resistance on the IWM is going to be this 38.2% fib level at 224.09. Right? So if we can cross back above 224.09, then we can continue on higher. But if the SPY and the NASDAQ are falling, I don't see the IWM really pushing forward alone just yet. Right? So clearly, we're working off of the oversold on the IWM while failing to close above key levels of resistance. So that is not a huge bullish signal. So we have to just continue monitoring. We can chop around here and then fall down even lower afterwards. So that's something to take into consideration on the IWM, but I did say the IWM was the most bullish. All right, so next, let's go ahead and take a look at the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ also does not look bullish. This was the first time that we closed below a very key level of support here at 374.06. Closed today at 373.83. We closed about 20 cents lower than the level of support. The next level of support that essentially the hold on the NASDAQ is 373.37. If we close below that level as well, then 371.37 is definitely going to be on the table here. See that we're also creating a bear flag formation on the NASDAQ that's not bullish at all. The MACD working out of oversold while falling. So the SPY and the NASDAQ both look garbage in terms of that. And you can see that the RSI is sharply falling, which is good, right? So if we can fall back down to 371 or to 369, 371.50 area here, then it would potentially be a much better buying opportunity. The Bollinger Band's moving up so sharply while the price is moving down means that, we can end up falling outside of the lower level of the B bands, which would give a much better buying opportunity. All right. So overall, SPY and the NASDAQ look garbage. The IWM looks somewhat more bullish than the other two, right? So now what we're going to go ahead and take a look at is the 30-year yield, the 10-year yield, and the dollar, because those heavily influence the indices market, and that's something that many people do not take into consideration. All right, here's a chart of the 30-year yield. I'm going to say this one time during this video. If the 30-year yield and the dollar are both doing well, then the NASDAQ is going to do well. And if the 10-year yield and the dollar are both doing well, then the IWM is going to do well. Okay? But since the 30-year yield was bearish, that is not a good sign for the NASDAQ. So going forward, the 30-year yield also is clearly showing tons of resistance at the 20 exponential moving average. We're showing lots of weakness. The MACD is still overbought, and we're falling lower, while the RSI is also falling lower. So I said that we needed to monitor what was going on with the 30-year yield. And if we start to close below key levels of support here, that would be devastating for the NASDAQ. So clearly, we're showing lots of weakness in the 30-year yield, and that keyed off of the weakness. So this weakness, the NASDAQ keyed off of, right? So now we need to really see if 162 is going to hold as support on the 30-year yield. This is not a good sign. So this MACD being overbought means that there's tons of potential room to the downside. And the fact that the RSI is still trading way above oversold is also not a good sign. So that means that there's tons of room to the downside, all right? So just be very careful on the NASDAQ and, going long in the market. We need to just continue monitoring the 30-year yield. And there is the analysis for that. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the 10-year yield. So the 10-year yield affects the IWM. And clearly the 10-year yield is far more bullish, okay? You can see from a technical standpoint, the MACD is oversold. It's crossing above, while, touching resistance levels. So now we need to see if 138, 1.386 is going to cross, and if we can start breaking up above, right? The RSI is moving up sharply. The MACD is moving up sharply, but we need to now cross above these levels of resistance here. If we can cross above these levels of resistance and hold this level of support, that is going to be very, very bullish for the IWM potentially. Right? So that's really it. Currently, the 10-year yield looks very bullish. It's about to start trading outside of the upper level of the B bands potentially. So that could be a bit of a warning signal, but overall, the MACD crossing above is bullish. And this is a bull flag formation, which is also bullish. Higher lows here, higher lows, also bullish. So, yeah, all eyes on the 10-year yield, and let's see what happens. All right, next, we're going to go ahead and check out the dollar. All right, so the dollar clearly showing lots of strength. It was a bull flag formation here. The 20 exponential moving average was acting as clear resistance, but these past few days, we skyrocketed above. And, again, like I said, if the dollar and the 10-year yield are doing well, then the IWM, well, that's essentially happened. So now we need to see if the dollar can start to accumulate a bit here and find support. It needs to find support above $93. So if we can find support above 93.03, especially, that would be very good. Create some sort of a base foundation here and then move on higher and cross above 93.7. So very, very interesting times for the overall market. The dollar and the 10-year yield clearly look much more bullish than the 30-year yield. SPY and the NASDAQ clearly look much more bearish than the IWM. So, yeah, we just have to continue monitoring that. And that is my analysis overall on the stock market. Now let's go ahead and check out the crypto markets. Oh, sorry. Let me just go ahead and cover crude oil real quick. So crude oil, it's showing support at 71.09. We made a bull flag. We broke out of the bull flag, and now it just needs to hold these levels of support at 70.50, 70.44, and then continue on higher. But it is alarming that we are very overbought, and the RSI has not sharply started to fall, which means that we can potentially fall down a bit lower on crude oil and come back down to the 69.27 area, and then even potentially 67.45 area. The key level of resistance now for crude oil is going to be this 23.6% fib level at 73.34. All right, there's my analysis on that. Now we can go ahead and check out the crypto markets. All right, Bitcoin clearly after a huge downward move, now we are trading around 38.2% fib level and the 50 level, which is good, right? What needs to happen for us to start becoming bullish is we need to cross above 49,114 and especially 50,800, right? If we cross above 49,114, that would basically invalidate this bear flag that is being formed, because currently we are in a bearish formation, all right? We're extremely overbought on the MACD, and the RSI is not sharply falling down, right? But this is a bear flag formation. So if we not cross above this level of here at the 6.8 level, that is going to be very, very bearish potentially for Bitcoin. All right. So especially given the fact that we are overbought on the MACD while failing to cross above resistance. So those are two things to take into consideration. Aside from that, there's not much else to talk about. Just accumulating, trading around these support zones. But yeah, aside from that, if you trade, day trade, look at shorter time frame, right? There's my analysis on Bitcoin. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum. So Ethereum, it's started to move a bit lower compared to Bitcoin. The MACD is still overbought, but it's having trouble crossing below. So you can see how Bitcoin is trading well above, like higher, right? But Ethereum basically is breaking down below these support, and it's below the 38 level, whereas Bitcoin was trading above the 38. So yeah, essentially, Ethereum is trading at the equivalent of if Bitcoin was at 46,600, and that is not the best sign, right? Especially since Ethereum and Bitcoin, they trade in unison. So if Ethereum is making a move, then Bitcoin usually follows thereafter. So, the fact that Ethereum is breaking down this level, now what needs to hold this 23.6% fib level at 32.35, 40. Okay. And this MACD needs to get oversold quickly because this is very, very weak and it's not a good sign that it's happening. So, the MACD needs to get oversold. The RSI is also barely moving to the downside while Ethereum is breaking levels of support. So that is not bullish. Yeah, I mean, if you want to scalp to the upside, you can hold certain levels of support and put your stop loss below those certain levels. But aside from that, we need to wait for things overall to look a bit more bullish for us to really, really go long. But overall, I mean, the entire crypto markets, long term, they're going to do really, really well, in my opinion. Not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, overall, I think this space, I think Ethereum goes to 5 to 10,000. I think Bitcoin goes to 100, 200,000 at least. And overall, I mean, yeah, if you have free money, buy the dips. Just wait for very, very vomiting, disgusting dips. Just don't buy these random small red days. All right. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.